Tomorrow marks 100 days for Trump in office, and he is ringing that in with some very low marks. Let's go through some of them, starting with a new ABC News Washington Post poll, which finds just that 39% of Americans approve of the way Trump is doing his job. That's compared to 55% who disapprove. Back in February, mind you, those numbers were 45% positive and 53% negative. Trump's approval rating in this poll is lower than any past president at the 100-day mark of their first or second term. So this is historically low for President Trump. According to the Washington Post, Trump has seen a decline of 10 points among white people without a college degree, who, of course, are a key part of his political coalition. Trump's also down 13 points among adults who are under the age of 30. The Post also notes that Trump is underwater among independents, a group that he just narrowly lost back in November. Among that voting bloc, 33% approve of his job handling, while 58% disapprove. Let's dive into the issues now. Some of the top ones. More than 3 out of 4 voters oppose reducing federal funding for medical research. 7 in 10 oppose the administration's efforts to increase the government's role in how private universities operate. 2/3 of voters oppose Trump's efforts to end birthright citizenship. And more than 6 in 10 oppose shutting down the education department, cutting back environmental regulations, and freezing foreign aid that provides food and health care to poor countries. Those are all, of course, we've seen major parts of the first 100 days. But overall, voters said they trust Trump more than Democrats in Congress when it comes to handling the country's main problems. When it comes to the economy, Trump's approval stands at 39% versus who approve versus 61% who disapprove. Just 2 months ago, before announcing his sweeping tariff policy, 45% approved, while 53% disapproved. It's worth noting that President Biden's economic approval rating was 37% about a year ago. Another poll finds that President Trump is underwater as he approaches his 100th day in office. According to the latest New York Times Siena College poll, 42% of voters approve of the job Trump is doing, while 54% disapprove. Those numbers are even more troubling among independents. Just 29% approve, while 66% disapprove. Looking at specific issues in this poll, the president's pursuit of widespread tariffs is opposed to 55% of voters and 63% of independents. Trump's also underwater on the issues of immigration, managing the federal government, the economy, trade, the Russia-Ukraine war, and the case involving Kilmar Abrego Garcia. And if the 2026 midterms were held today, voters would back the Democrat over the Republican candidate in their district by 7 points. According to a new Fox News poll of registered voters, Democrats led Republicans 49% to 42% on the congressional generic ballot. Those results are similar to April 2017, which, of course, during Trump's first term in office, and are the largest lead for Democrats since October of 2018. Democrats are mostly ahead due to being preferred by voters under the age of 30, 60% to 33%, and by independents by a 2-to-1 margin, 40% to 18%. Joe, there's a series of polls that came out this weekend. One from Reuters had Trump's approval rating down to just 37%. But it is together, it is a snapshot here at the 100-day mark. A 100-day mark that the Trump administration, we've talked to senior officials who thought they really started strong. That they were getting out there, they're getting their agenda done, they liked where they were, and they've seen here, particularly in the last month to 6 weeks, on issues that are supposed to be his strengths. Immigration, and then namely the economy, he's taken real hits, and now he's historically underwater.
Well, and you've talked about this, and in your reporting in the White House, you've talked about the fact that they felt like everything was going their way, that Signalgate was really sort of a switch, and then got hit by a series of things that have just cumulatively added up. Of course, got the stock market that's gone down. They will say, well, it's up to 40,000 now. NASDAQ's had, better April. But again, a lot of things that have been hitting over the past couple of weeks. And Jim Vandehei, these numbers, there are not outliers. You have the Washington Post, he's at 39%. The AP, the president's at 39%. Pew, the president's at 40%. Reuters, he's down to 37%. So very bad news for the president. You also look at the generic ballot test from Fox News. Looks like that's very bad news for Republicans. And then, Jim, then though, the same poll that shows Democrats are up in the generic ballot test shows that Democrats, their brand is as low as ever as far as approval ratings. And then on the economy, where Donald Trump is doing worse than he's ever done before, John just read that the Democrats are a -7 against Donald Trump on who Americans trust more on the economy. So there's a lot to sort through there for Donald Trump, for Republicans and the Democrats. What stands out to you?
Well, first off, if it's one poll, you could say it's an anomaly. You've cited about 6 of them. So you could assume that the general direction is correct. The fact that Democrats are a hot mess, I don't think is new. They are a hot mess. They will be a hot mess until they have some levers of power. They don't have the House. They don't have the Senate. They don't have the White House. They don't have a lot of support among CEOs right now. And that's usually the reality of a team that's been wiped out in an election. So I'd sort of put that on one side. If I'm Trump and I'm President Trump, I'd be really worried, right, that if in a short period of time on the issues where you were strongest, the economy and immigration, you're seeing a massive dip. And what should be even more troubling is that directionally, if you really dig into those polls, the American people support what he's trying to do on immigration and in theory support what he's trying to do on trade. They don't like the chaos. They don't like the absence of due process. And so I don't think it was actually Signalgate that sort of turned things internally. It was very much the tariff fight, because the entire public dialogue has been about companies that are now confused, thinking about not hiring people, some sporadic layoffs, and a lot of predictions that we are in a recession or headed into a recession, and that inflation could come along with that. That's always what troubles voters the most. And if he can't pull a rabbit out of the hat and somehow, with all those companies that he's imposed tariffs on, strike deals relatively quickly in a pretty orderly process, it's going to be really, really hard to reverse the economic effect of that. There's not a single company that anybody is talking to that is not talking about pausing jobs, cutting jobs, and dealing with mass uncertainty throughout the year. That's a bad mood for corporate America to be in, because these decisions take a long time to put in motion and a long time to reverse. And so they know they've got to get these tariff deals right. And there's a lot of concern internally, a lot more than is let out into the public about how they've handled this. They know this was a problem of their own making. There was a different way to handle the tariffs, a different way to handle China, and now they're having to scramble to do a bunch of deals, and they don't have great infrastructure in place to do multiple deals simultaneously.
Now, Ashley, what did you learn in your interview with the president regarding tariffs, the economy, and also, as Jim pointed to, the view among many Americans that it's chaotic inside the White House?
So on tariffs in particular, we asked the president about this idea on Wall Street of a so-called put-put, which is a sense that there is basically a red line that the president, cannot stomach the economy falling below. And that could be a number of things. That could be the devaluation of the dollar. That could be markets plummeting. That could be the threat of a recession or a recession. That could be the bond market. And the idea is that if something like this happens or is about to happen, the president will pull back on what he plans to do with tariffs. And this idea is sort of reassuring to Wall Street, because they believe that it shows like what happened last time will happen again when this 90-day pause is up, that he won't actually crater the economy in his effort for tariffs. And what the president said essentially was, no. There is no red line for me. There is no certain number. I pay a little bit of attention to that, but he said, this is something, tariffs, the idea, and you've heard him talk about it, that America is getting a bad deal, that America is getting taken advantage of. This is something I have believed in my gut for 35 to 40 years. And there is no sort of, clear thing where if it happens, I will pull back. Now, again, this is what he said to us in the interview. This doesn't actually mean that this is what he will do if there is a threat of a recession or if prices are going up because of his tariffs. But in this moment, when we put it to him quite clearly, this is what he said.